What's going on, guys? My name is Austin. This is the Bodies in Business podcast. And today we're going to talk about stress. And we're really going to talk about how you can manage stress, how the body reacts when you get stressed so that you understand what are the things you can do to bring your stress levels down. And then also we're going to talk about how you can kick stress's butt over the long term, because no matter what, you are going to find yourself in stressful situations throughout your life. And you're going to want to have good go-to things that you can de-stress in the moment, but then also over the long term, you don't feel like you're always feeling stressed throughout the day. So what happens? What happens in the body when we get stressed? And I think this is important because when you think about what happens in the body when you get stressed, you want to do the opposite of what actually happens when you get stressed so that you feel less stressed. So you have increased heart rate and blood pressure. So when we want to feel less stressed, we want to decrease heart rate and decrease our blood pressure, right? Our breathing speeds up when we get stressed. We want to slow our breathing down if we want to relax a little more. Just take a deep breath in and release. Even for me, doing this podcast, I even feel a little stressed. So even just doing that breath right then and there makes me feel less stressed, and I can think a little more clearly. So then I'm going to stop. I'm talking really fast right now and I can feel myself do it. So then I'm going to take another deep breath. Exhale. Relax. And so the next thing on the list is muscles tighten. So I could even feel my body relax a little bit whenever I honestly took that deep breath and took a long exhale, okay? Which whenever you're feeling very excited and you're feeling stressed, your muscles tighten. So you're feeling jacked up whenever you're feeling stressed, okay? Attention sharpens. So there are times when you do want to be stressed because you want your attention to be sharpened. You want to be focused on something. When you're taking a test that means a lot to you, and if you're going to graduate or not, you definitely want your stress levels to be a little higher so that you can focus your attention and answer the question correctly. You don't want to be off in la la land and not thinking about the question that you're trying to read and make the best answer for it. So attention sharpens. So let's say you want to relax a little more. Don't sharpen your attention, relax your attention. So you just look around, not really thinking about anything. I'm just looking at things around the room, all these other things. So when your attention is sharp, that means you have heightened levels of stress, okay? Blood flow is redirected to the heart and major muscles, all right? Obviously, you don't want to redirect all your blood flow away from those things. I would say it's probably pretty hard to redirect blood flow from your heart and major muscles intentionally. But when we do our breathing and when we relax and don't unsharpen our focus, that makes us relax a little more, okay? And then when you are, stressed out in the moment, your digestion actually temporarily slows because all of the effort is going towards your heart, major muscle groups, and focusing very intensely on what you're trying to do. And I'll go back to doing this podcast. I want to provide the best information I can for my people that actually watch these videos, so I don't sound like an idiot. And so I put a lot of pressure on myself. I feel a little stressed because I always think I should probably practice a little more, do a little more research, or do something where I'm not going to feel as stressed when I do this. Now, I definitely feel like I have a lot of information when it comes to stress and talking about stress. I don't have a PhD in stress management. So that's where my stress level gets a little high because I don't want to provide any information for you guys that you're going to be like, oh, I don't like that information, or he's talking about something I would never do, or I don't believe in, and stuff like that. So that's where I get stressed when I do these. So let's think about times when we get stressed, all right? I know I get stressed whenever I have to do a presentation, or whenever I am in an argument with my wife or a friend or a coach or a colleague. I also get stressed if I'm preparing for something that means a lot to me, right? And that could be just about anything. Like a game. Am I helping my brother in a football game and it's a really intense football game and I know we both want to win? I get a little stressed because I want to make good calls and good suggestions to him. So think about when you get most stressed, right? And we're going to talk about ways that you can really prepare for that stress and also get your body in a place where you can handle that stress a little better, okay? So stressful moments could include interviewing for a new job, meeting an important deadline, arguing with a spouse, friend, or family member, students misbehaving in a class. I work with a lot of teachers and educators, and I can guarantee you that I have felt the stress of being in a classroom when kids aren't listening, disrupting what I'm trying to do, or just, just being, disruptive, right? And not being a, student that is the, quintessential A plus, like does everything that you would tell them student. And just being around kids in general, you don't know what they're going to do all the time. So your stress levels are usually pretty high, especially when you're dealing with younger kids and kids in middle school. High schoolers, hopefully they have, learned to act in appropriate ways in the classroom, but that is not always the case either. So that's why I like to talk about stress and stress management, so that you can understand why we get stressed and ways we can manage that stress. So how predictable is your day? All right, we're going to talk about How Emotions Are Made, written by Lisa Feldman Barrett. It's a book that has really helped me understand why I would get stressed. Okay. And control is a huge part of feeling stressed. When we feel not in control, that is when we feel the most stressed. And I'm going to read this little excerpt from her book that is going to help us understand why control is something that actually makes us feel like we are less stressed. A sense of control is one of the pivotal factors that drives our stress levels up and down. We love control. The human brain desires predictability. We want to know our future. Not only to know it, but to have the power to determine how it unfolds to the greatest extent possible. Appearing in control can reduce stress, especially chronic stress. When you have a sense of power over your day, you are more quick to experience that health peak in recovery stress response with a quick return to baseline that benefits your mind and body. Basically, that means that when you feel like you're in control of your day, you know what's coming. You feel like you have a sense that there's not a lot of unpredictability, and I know that I'm in control of what I'm doing throughout the day. When things are very unpredictable in certain situations and in your life, that's when stress really comes on strong, because you're always on alert. You don't know what's going to happen next. So that control really gives you ability to know, okay, I can prepare my mind and body for what's next, and I feel in control and I feel adequate for the next step. People who feel like they have no control over their day may experience a threat response. It peaks and they never quite resolve it. A constant chronic state of stress born of uncertainty and powerlessness. That sounds just awful. Not having control of your day, chronic state of stress and uncertainty, and feeling powerless is such a bad feeling. So we need to understand what are ways that we can take control of our day. And so this is where I think planning is super helpful. Just because you have a plan doesn't mean your day is set. It doesn't mean everything's going to go according to plan. But when you can implement things throughout your day that you plan for and expect, it gives you a sense of that control. When you can plan when you wake up, when you eat meals, when you work out, these things are super helpful to feel like you have control of certain aspects of your life. When you don't feel like you have control of aspects of your life, you always are feeling stressed because you don't know what's coming next. Okay, let me read another excerpt from this. A sense of control enhances our emotional stability. Older people are protected from the negative effects, but control is a mixed bag. When we try to control the uncontrollable, the opposite happens. And that is very interesting, okay? So it means control is a double-edged sword. And I love thinking about, like, what can I control and what can't I control? So that's a good question to ask yourself, and it's a good practice you can do. So we have to learn the separate circumstances in our lives. We have two buckets: things we can control and things we can't control. All right? If a problem is fixable, if a situation is such that you can do something about it, there's no need to worry. If it's not fixable, there's no help in worrying. That is from the Dalai Lama. All right? It's just a fun quote to think, like, okay, do I have control over this aspect, and can I control this certain thing in my life? Okay, let me try to fix that. Is there something I don't have control in my life? Like people, you don't necessarily have control over people all the time, and they are unpredictable sometimes. So that is something like the weather. We don't have control of the weather. We can't control if it's going to rain or be sunny or be snowy and stuff like that. And so it's like breaking it really like down to, am I in control of this, or do I not have control? And can I not worry about it as much? And that is super important, because a lot of times we worry about things we can't control, and it just drives us up the wall. It just is like, man, when you think about things you can't control and you try to control them, you're going to drive yourself crazy. Here is an exercise that you can do to try to help yourself. If you're feeling stressed out all the time, make a list. One side, draw a line down a piece of paper. On one side, say, these are the things I can control. And then on the other side, write, these are the things I can't control. List everything you can control and then list everything you can't control. Okay? And be honest with yourself. Write things down that you feel like you can control, and then write things down you feel like you can't control, okay? And this will honestly lay out things that probably make you stressed, right? And if it's something you can't control, figure out ways of like, okay, what are ways that I can control things around that thing? If I can't control that thing directly, how can I control things around that, right? Okay. So when you're thinking about all the things that you are trying to do in a day, some people feel like they're like juggling, juggling balls, right? And we have to figure out which sometimes some people are like, I'm just juggling too many balls right now. Like that's why I'm so stressed. You have to figure out, from what Lisa Feldman Barrett says, is you have to figure out what balls you can let drop on the ground. And the reason why you feel like that, or you have to be able to say that, is because sometimes you just can't keep juggling so many balls, or you're just going to literally fall yourself and all the balls are going to fall, and you're just going to be sick, or you're going to be in the hospital or something, and you're not going to be able to juggle the balls at all. Okay. So the way she says it is you want to delete stress. We feel out of control when we have too many balls in the air. Sometimes the right thing to do is just let one of those balls fall. And some people will say, I can't let any balls fall. I have to juggle all of them. And the most common reaction is that I can't drop any balls. Everything is necessary. Everything is critical. People depend on me. Nothing can give. So then you have to question deeply if this is actually true. Okay. Some people will say, I have to do this. I have to do this. I must do this. And we simply can't do it all. And so then you go, okay, well, wonder if I wasn't here at all. Like just let me see if I was gone for a day, what would fall off the table and what would get done? Ask the hard question. Can I push the delete button? What would actually happen if I got rid of this responsibility or delegated it? What's the worst thing that could happen? And those are good questions to ask, because sometimes you just have to like tap out. You have to bow out and you say, I can't do everything. I can't do everything. I have to focus on me and getting myself unstressed enough to where I feel strong enough for myself that I can continue to go on and not feel stressed all the time, right? And that's why you have to be honest with yourself. And sometimes it's okay to say like, I can't do everything, right? A lot of people want to do the things they feel like they have the capacity to do. For me, I definitely do. Like doing this podcast, I really enjoy doing this because I know a lot of people, well, not a lot of people listen to it, but a lot of people read the newsletter, and maybe one day people will watch these videos, but I feel obligated to do this. And if I felt like it was too much, maybe I would say, you know what? I can only make a minute video and I can only do that today. Anyways, so what are ways? I want to talk about ways that we can de-stress in the moment. And then also there are ways we can prepare ourselves for stressful moments. Okay. What's a great way to de-stress in the moment? Breathing is a great way to de-stress in the moment, and not just normal breathing. You want to do what's called a physiological sigh or do long breathing. Okay. Physiological sigh, Dr. Andrew Huberman talks about, is taking a quick inhale and then relax. Okay. So double inhale. And you can feel it. You can really feel your heart rate like slow down. I even feel my heart rate slow down when I do that. And it's awesome because I'm like, oh man, I can think so much clearer right now. Or you can do 4-7-8 breathing. I love doing 4-7-8 breathing when I'm laying in bed. When I'm laying in bed and I can't sleep because I'm thinking about a million different things, I'll do 4-7-8 breathing. 4-7-8 breathing is inhaling for a 4 count, holding for a 7 count, and then exhaling for an 8 count. Okay, that's 4-7-8 breathing. And you can do that 4 or 5 rounds, or you can just continue to do it, because when you're thinking about your breath, you're not going to be thinking about all the other million things you're doing, and you're counting, right? So your breath is a great way to really relax in the moment. All right. Deep breathing can really slow your heart rate down. Quick breathing speeds your heart rate up. Okay. So going for a walk is an amazing way to de-stress. Okay. When you go for a walk, there are so many things that happen. A lot of endorphins, dopamine, all these serotonin, all these feel-good chemicals are rushing through your body, and you're actually letting that adrenaline and cortisol kind of release as you're walking, as you're feeling more confident, as you can just relax a little more, right? When you're sitting in one spot and you feel like you can't go anywhere, you get anxious, and like action actually makes you calm down a little bit. That doesn't mean you always have to get up and go for a walk, but it's just a really good tactic if you're feeling super stressed about something, right? And I'll harp on that a little bit, is taking a break. I literally had an argument with my wife, and my wife was very, very good about saying, hey, let's table this. And it's such an important thing to be able to do that, to take a break from something, to step away and think about it a little more logically. Because in the moment, you can be super, super fixated on trying to win an argument or say the right thing, or your just heart rate's up and you're not thinking super clearly. Which goes to my next thing of working out. So one of the main reasons I think working out is so beneficial for people is because it prepares you to be in a stressful situation, and it prepares you to be able to think when you're in those stressful situations, so that you can think clearly, say the right things, and say things that you're not going to regret, and also make good decisions, like physical decisions, like not trying to hit anybody or try to do anything that's going to be rash or act irrational. So that's why working out and doing HIIT workouts is super helpful when it comes to being able to think clearly when a student is acting out in your classroom, when you're in an argument with somebody, so that you can think more clearly. That doesn't mean you want to keep doing it. It just means like, hey, I don't want to say anything or do anything that I'm going to regret. All right. So those are two really good examples of like when you are feeling stressed, you want to be able to know what that feeling feels like doing a 15 to 30 minute HIIT workout, so that you can act very, very calm when you're in that situation. Okay. And then the last one is planning. And we talked about this in the beginning, but just planning your day, or planning a trip, or planning what you think is going to happen in a specific situation, gives you the ability to kind of live that moment without actually doing it. And you can think about all the things that can go poorly during those situations. And so then you can be more prepared for those specific situations. But I'm going to keep moving on because I know it's getting a little long-winded. But long-term stress, Andrew Huberman talks about, can be very bad for us. When stress elevates for months or years and begins disrupting sleep, it becomes highly destructive. Elevated levels of adrenaline over a long period of time can be very destructive to our health. Long-term stress can contribute to heart disease. To combat chronic stress, Huberman emphasizes the critical importance of social connection, which releases serotonin. When we're around people that we recognize and trust, we release serotonin in the brain and body, which is really cool to hear, because a lot of times I'm talking about things you can do to de-stress on your own, but it's very important to have a really good social connection and social group that you feel that you can trust and rely on. Serotonin can take many forms, okay? Romantic relationships can produce serotonin. Familial attachments can produce serotonin. So, good family relationships. Friendships can produce serotonin. Having a pet can produce serotonin. Even things that just delight us. Having a sense of delight and really enjoying something that you see and engage in, witness a participant in, that is associated with serotonin system. So social connections are very important in our lives. So for me, I remember when I was playing rugby, there was a time in my life where I felt like I had to train so hard and I was always by myself and all these other things. And I really didn't enhance or try to work on my relationships as much. And I always felt like I was on my own. And I feel like if you isolate yourself and you don't really try to build those connections over time, you feel like you can't really rely on anybody and no one really knows what you're going through. That's why social connections are so important, because you want people to understand you and be able to feel trusted in those moments. So, and one thing you have to understand is social connections take work. All right. They take time. So you're not just going to have a great social connection with somebody right off the bat. Usually it's going to take time to trust them, and you're going to have to open up to them. You're going to have to feel vulnerable and so that they can understand you. All right. The last thing I want to talk about is sleep. So this is a big thing. And there are so many times in our lives when we are sleep deprived. I would say having a child, you're very sleep deprived and you feel very stressed. Studying for exams or presentations, you're going to feel very sleep deprived sometimes. And you're going to feel like, oh man, I just feel so on edge. Or even just stressful times in your life, right? Like you're going through a move, you're getting a new job. These types of things just create stress. Sometimes you get less sleep during these moments in your life. And you need to understand that sleep deprivation scrambles your emotional construction, all right? Sleep loss increases amygdala activity, which is your threat detection, and then weakens your prefrontal cortex, which is your emotional regulation. So when your amygdala activity increases, you're always on edge. And then when your prefrontal cortex condition weakens, that means your emotional regulations, you're going to feel more on edge and you're going to be more irritable, faster to frustration, stronger anxiety, and lower tolerance for uncertainty. This is why sleep is so important. And I think that most people are sleep deprived in this world because we're trying to stay up too late, watching TV, getting work done, or just on our phones because we don't want to go to bed. Because a lot of times we only feel like we're in control at nighttime in our home. And so we're like, we don't want to lose that control. If we're in front of the TV and we're like, I can either keep watching this show because I'm in control, or I can go to bed and I can just, go into the next day, then somebody else is in control. A lot of times people are like, you know what? I want to stay up because I'm in control right now. And I kind of like that. Whereas we're giving up our sleep, and sleep is really putting us in a feeling of stress. Okay. So if there's one thing that you can do to really enhance not feeling super stressed, is work on your sleep. And I'll tell you, whenever you have a kid, or you're sick, or you are getting a new job, all these things that are preventing you from getting good sleep, they are causing you to feel more stress. So you have to work on ways to feel less stressed. Naps are a great way to de-stress. All right. A nap in the afternoon for 15 or 20 minutes can really, really give you some, its power naps can clear away some of that adenosine and feel like you give you more energy and make you feel less stressed. Now, the other thing I want to touch on right before we finish is, I know there are ways that you can de-stress. I'm not blind to those. There's alcohol. There are, different types of drugs like marijuana. There are other drugs that definitely make you de-stress. What I will say for those, everyone is, to each their own. You need to understand what those things do to your brain and body over the long term. And what I'll say is, I love trying to figure out ways that I can de-stress naturally and prepare for stress naturally, because I don't want to have to rely on a certain drug to make me feel like I need to de-stress. Don't get me wrong. Growing up, when I wrestled, I was very, very stressed out. And I think I remember taking a certain medication that helped me with stress. So I know there are times in our lives when medication is something you feel like you need to do in order to feel less stressed. But there are things in our brains and our bodies that can help us prepare for stress and manage stress in a very healthy way. I'm not saying you should never drink alcohol, do drugs that are safe. I'm not saying to do those things. But what I am saying is, if we can try to control stress the best way we know possible in a natural way and not have to rely on those things constantly, I think you put yourself in a better position to be able to manage stress in very stressful times, in the moment, and then over the long term. Okay. That's all I got. Hopefully that's helpful. I'm a little hoarse now because I've been talking for 27 minutes straight, and hopefully you got something out of that. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out, and that's all I got. Get after it.